Because you would have died for my mom. Robert Wagner is still making workout vids online even though he is 95 years old. You don't see, though, what took place in 1981. That November night, a woman drowned off his boat. He didn't call for help for 90 minutes. He was named a person of interest by police in 2018. He hasn't talked to them since then. That person now lives in Aspen with his wife, who was the victim's best friend. 2 months after the funeral, they got married. Why is that the most shocking part? The more you read, the darker this story gets. Robert John Wagner Jr. was born in Detroit on February 10, 1930. His family wasn't having as much trouble as most were during the Great Depression. Born in Kalamazoo in 1890, his dad had already been through a lot. After being abused, he left home at 10 and sold newspapers to make money. They were living in a fancy house on Fairway Drive, next to a golf course, when Robert was born. It was built in 1934. His mom, Thelma Hazel Alvera, used to work as a phone lady. Her parents came to the United States from Norway and got married in 1887. Because his dad was named Bob, the boy was called RJ, and that name stuck with him through everything. There was a time when RJ was only 7 years old when his family moved from Detroit to Bel Air, California. His dad got a better job, and the new neighborhood was close to golf fields and the Hollywood studios. Wagner ended up going to the Black Fox Military Institute, which was started by men who had been in the lines of World War I. It was right next to Wilshire Country Club. Because of where it was, Wagner was surrounded by the kids of movie stars. It was still close to the movie business in his life, and that left an effect on him. After that, around 1942, RJ got sick. He was stuck in bed for months because of rheumatic fever. In those days, it was a dangerous illness that could damage your heart for good. The doctors told his parents that it could hurt his growth or even make things worse. But RJ listened to the radio and read movie magazines while he lay there. He felt more connected to the world he had been avoiding for years when he was by himself with his thoughts. It was a terrible turn of events, but it helped him focus, and he got through it. More powerful than anyone thought. He first worked as a caddy at the Bel Air Country Club when he was about 12 years old. It wasn't just a job. It gave him a front row spot to Hollywood stars. Everyone from Clark Gable to Bing Crosby walked by. He wasn't a very good caddy because the stars often took his attention away from where the ball fell. He was known as the quiz kid because he would ask a lot of questions about their films. During a love scene, Gable had to stop in the middle of a swing when RJ asked him about changing gears in a car. They couldn't help but see something in him, even as they made fun of him. After many years, he told Fred Astaire that he had gotten a part at Fox. Astaire smiled and told him to go for it. Wagner finally had his time when he was 18 years old, in 1948. A person looking for ability saw him at a restaurant. Soon after, he signed with agent Henry Wilson and tried his hand at the studio game. His first gig came about because of a friend. The director was aware of his dad. It was called The Happy Years, and he got $30,050 for it. His dad told him he had 1 year to get a real job or make it in films. He made $75 a week at Fox, but the rivalry was tough. There were dozens of new guys vying for every line, but things began to change. His first creditable role was in Halls of Montezuma, which came out in early 1951. The company began to see how good he could be. That's when things changed. In With a Song in My Heart, he played a war hero for 47 seconds. He was quiet but powerful, with only trembling hands and tears. 2 weeks after the show's launch, a lot of fan letters came in for 10th I 347. More than some stars got all year. In the same year, Fox gave him 3 lead parts and raised his pay from $150 a week to $750. Things got messy behind the smile, though. Wagner, who was 22 at the time, was seeing 3 actresses, Joan Evans, Terry Moore, and Deborah Paget, while Stars and Stripes Forever was being filmed. A reporter took a picture of him leaving Evans's house at 2 a.m., which caused a fight. She was only 16. The law in California didn't care about family permission at that time. The staff became very scared. They put him with guardians and told him to stop hanging out with young girls. He agreed and looked at Paget. But rumors about the people he liked stuck around for years. Wagner was making films under the 12-Mile Reef in the Bahamas by the beginning of 1953. As part of his job, he had to dive deep underground. There was a scene on February 18 where he was spearfishing when his air hose got stuck on coral 45 feet away. Before the divers got to him, he was in a fear for 3 full minutes while he was low on air. He came up panting and throwing up water from the dive, and he refused to go back down. For 5 days, work stopped. He said he did all of the underwater shots himself, but a double finished them. It was a sharp irony. This person who almost drowned would later become famous for boats and sailing. Things got even more dangerous in Prince Valiant. On set, sword fights got bloody. One stuntman had a hole made in his lung. One of them broke his shoulder. One person lost 2 fingers. A lot of crashes were happening, and the British Union said they would shut everything down if it kept up. Behind the scenes, Wagner's friendship with Deborah Paget caused even more trouble. Her strict mother saw them together in his hotel room. The company paid $15,000 to keep the scandal quiet and keep Wagner's contract. Then, in 1956, A Kiss Before Dying came out. The $75,000 noir movie was a big step forward for Wagner. His co-star, Robert Stack, wasn't happy, though. Stack made more cash and didn't like being noticed by other people. During practices, he spilled coffee on Wagner's scripts 14 times, according to the notes from the director. Stack once locked Wagner in a bathroom trailer for 90 minutes right before a big scene. Wagner didn't fight back. He worked hard all the time. Making Stop Over Tokyo took 68 days in the hot summer of 1957, and each day brought new problems. Wagner's trips to Ginza to see geisha homes almost caused an international scandal. A nearby newspaper got photos of the show and Fox had to pay more than $6,000 to hide the story. Embassy staff got involved. The U.S. didn't want news stories about a Hollywood star breaking Japanese rules. The studio put Wagner in his hotel with 2 agents and locked the door for the rest of the shoot. In the autumn of that year, Wagner broke his collarbone while doing a stunt on horseback for the real story of Jesse James. On set, though, the real action took place. He got into a fight with Elvis Presley about hopelang at a Hollywood party. Wagner is said to have pushed Elvis into a pool. The fight got worse. Elvis's boss told him to say sorry. Wang knew that Elvis had sent Lang a diamond ring worth $3,000 and more than 100 roses. They got so angry with each other that event planners had to make sure the 2 stars never met in the same room. Wagner went to a Rat Pack boat party that went horribly wrong in the 1961 movie Sail a Crooked Ship. In rough sea, he tried to steer the boat but hit rocks instead. This damaged the boat and put Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. in danger. At 2 a.m., the Coast Guard had to come and save them. Wagner had almost twice as much alcohol in his blood as is allowed. The $47,000 in losses led to a court case. Sinatra paid the lawyer's fees, but he told Wagner he couldn't go to any more boat parties for 2 years. John Wayne praised him for his part in The Longest Day. But things went off the rails behind the scenes. It was almost half of Wagner's screen time that was cut, and he yelled about favoritism in the trailer of director Darryl Zanuck. He said he was going to quit the $6 million show. Fox almost put Tab Hunter in his place. His lawyer got him a better deal in the end. 10 minutes on TV time and a $50,000 bonus. But the harm was already done. Wagner's deal with Fox was up, and he quit. This ended a story that began with $27.50 and a dream. It all began in 1956, when Robert Wagner took over a date that wasn't even his. He was only meant to be with one woman, Natalie Wood, but with someone else. But by the end of the night, he had changed his mind. Natalie was his right away. The next year, on December 28, 1957, in Scottsdale, they got married. But their perfect wedding almost fell apart when Natalie lost it over some fan letters Wagner had been getting. As they were about to say adieu, they screamed for 2 hours in their Chateau Marmont room. Following just 2 years, Wagner was on set seeing Warren Beatty put his arm around his wife between takes. Making their first movie, they were shooting All the Cute Young Cannibals, and Beatty was also making his move. Wagner left the set more than once in a rage. Later, director Elia Kazan wrote that Wagner was made fun of in public. There were a lot of delays in production, scripts had to be redone, and Wagner was falling apart while everyone watched. Wagner once again shocked everyone when the marriage ended in April 1962. He started dating Barbara Stanwyck, who was 23 years older than him and had worked with him on Titanic. The relationship went on for 4 years, and only a few close friends knew about it. She put him in touch with important people, helped shape his playing style, and ran almost every aspect of his life. He had to call her every hour because he couldn't play a part without her okay. It dawned on him that he would always be Mr. Stanwyck, and that was never going to be enough. After that came It Takes a Thief. Wagner was making $5,000 a show by 1968, which was one of the highest salaries on TV. He changed himself with help from Cary Grant. But things almost went wrong again when Wagner casually told people about the plan at a dinner party. FBI secret information about spying. The Bureau wanted everyone to sign an NDA, approve the script, and go through security training. Wagner had to say sorry in public just to keep the show going. He married Natalie again in 1972. It seemed like a blank slate, but everything was broken below. There were already rumors in gossip magazines that she was getting close to co-stars and even a tennis teacher. Wagner made it a point to go to therapy twice a week for $200 a session. The doctor was honest with them. He had power over her. She wanted to be free. Still, they stayed together. It almost did not happen that Hart to Hart would be cast. Wagner wasn't even the first choice. It was Cary Grant. A newspaper strike pushed back Stefanie Powers' Broadway show, which is how she got in. Natasha Wood was even asked by ABC to play the part. Even though it was a mess, something worked. The show was a huge hit with viewers and became one of ABC's crown jewels. She died after that. November 29, 1981. She drowned while on vacation with Wagner and Christopher Walken for Thanksgiving on the boat Splendor. Heart of Darkness, an episode that was eerily about water, had just been shot. Making things stopped. That time in Wagner's life was called A Charmed Life Turned to Ash. The story didn't stop, though. Heart to Heart was cancelled in 1992, but they came back with reunion films in 1993. Wagner and Powers both made music. Wagner said that shooting made him think of the family trips he had planned with Natalie but never took. Powers said that ABC got rid of the first show too soon. There were 4 drafts, 2 directors, and even places in Paris booked. The TV films helped them put things to rest, or almost did. Lionel Stander, who played Max the butler, was the one who kept them all together. When Wagner met him, he was living with 3 women after getting married 6 times and being put on a ban. They all loved him a lot. Wagner even took Max's famous opening line from an old poster for Double Insurance. It was murder when they met. It was like family when it wasn't on TV. It felt like treachery when the show was cancelled in 1984. Wagner learnt about it while Powers was in Paris shooting a movie. He called her and said, "We're not on the lineup." It was over in an instant. By the time they came back in the 1990s, it wasn't just about TV. It had to do with memories. About losing someone or something and ending something that never ended. Robert Wagner was no longer in the public eye when he was 67 years old. He was only making a few guest performances, and most of Hollywood had quietly moved on. But then Austin Powers came along in 1997. Mike Myers didn't think Wagner was a good choice for number 2. In Myers's words, he was too polite, too old, or even too smart. Still, Wagner didn't just show up to the test. He wore a bald cap and a gray suit and showed up as Dr. Evil. His 8-minute performance was so good that it shocked Myers. Because Wagner did such a great job with the part, it grew from 3 minutes to 12 minutes over the course of the series. His shoe move became a culture moment on its own. New Line Cinema even made 50,000 buttons with his face on them to promote the movie. Only one word. The first movie brought in $650,000, which was more than he had made in 5 years on TV. Wagner made $2.3 million from the 3 books together. The first movie made $650,000, the second won $800,000, and Goldmember $850,000. It wasn't just money, though. Wagner didn't want to do any of the moves during the 1999 shoot. He fell 8 feet to the ground during a scene escape in an underground lair when he was 69 years old. As a result, there were 2 bulging discs, a squished spine, and 6 days of no work. He was given OxyContin but turned it down. Wagner didn't want to go down that path after seeing Robert Downey Jr. deal with addiction. He instead used ice packs and meditated, which were skills he learned from his co-star on Hart. The next year, surgery was needed to fix the damage. He had to pay $75,000 for it. He didn't make a claim. He thought it would hurt his chances of getting jobs in the future. After that came Beyoncé. It was March 2002, and Goldmember was being made. Beyoncé, who was playing Foxy Cleopatra, started making things up as she went along in an office scene. What's wrong? Her improvised lines went right over some of Wagner's most famous lines. Wagner didn't agree. Beyoncé pushed back and said that his image was out of date. Things became tense. Jay Roach, the director, agreed with Wagner. Over the course of 3 days, 4 scenes were filmed again. It cost $480,000. That included $280,000 to rebuild the sets and $200,000 for extra work. Wagner later said it was the most unprofessional thing that had ever happened to him at work. The stress was real, but Beyoncé's team said it was just artistic differences. He started NCIS as Anthony Donazzo Sr. in 2010, when he was 80 years old. He was in 13 episodes over the course of 9 years and got $200,000 per show. That's $2.6 million, the most money he's ever made from TV work. In season 10, there was an episode that hit too close to home. His character pretended to be dead to get away from Russian killers. The Natalie Wood case had just been opened again in real life. Gary Glassberg, who runs the show, Wagner leaned in and delivered the line, "Some secrets are worth dying for," with real weight, even though the story was based on his own legal problems. After the fact, Michael Weatherly said that Wagner stayed in character between takes. Even at lunch, he talked like he wasn't very senior, especially when he talked about father-son ties. Wagner's last episode of NCIS aired in May 2019. It was the show called Arizona. Wagner went off script in one scene that was very dramatic. He added, "I've carried unforgiven pasts that haunt every breath I take." That line wasn't in the script. He wrote it after years of feeling bad about what he did. The group stopped talking. It kept going with the cameras. For minutes without a script, no retakes. That line was kept in the end. Wagner wrapped his presents and then sat in his dressing room by himself for 20 minutes. He then came out to thank everyone. It was his last scripted part, and the truth marked the end of a 65-year career. He did a lot of things off-screen, though, that helped shape Wagner's career just as much. He created the CBS show Switch in the 1970s. It only had 3 seasons, but the 71 scenes that were shown over and over again were huge hits. Wagner, who got a 50% stake through Universal, made more than $8 million from repeats. The show was partly based on The Sting, which was a clever idea that did well around the world. Even though it only lasted a short time, Wagner made one of the best financial choices he ever made. Wagner's autobiography, Pieces of My Heart, came out in 2008. The first printing of 150,000 books sold out very quickly. He talked about having an affair with Elizabeth Taylor in the 1950s. He said it was a weak moment that almost took away his marriage to Natalie Wood. His ties with stars like Barbara Stanwyck and Joan Crawford were also written about in the book. He said Crawford was both scary and attractive. People loved reading his behind-the-scenes Hollywood stories. Not the ones that look great on the red carpet, but the ones that are real and messy. You must remember this, his second book, came out in 2014. It showed what was really going on in the darker parts of old Hollywood. Wagner talked about how organized crime controlled the business and said that Frank Sinatra met with mobsters at the Brown Derby. He told stories about guys in tailored suits who solved problems by giving money, making threats, or both. He even told stories about relationships, drug use, and lies. Wrongdoing with money. He talked about how Elizabeth Taylor was always late and behaved like a diva at industry events. This gave an honest look at how the studio system kept its biggest stars from being shamed in public. Wagner also worked on making TV movies. He made the HBO movie The Enemy Within in 1994, which was a version of 7 Days in May. He was nominated for an Emmy, but things didn't go as planned. There was a fight between Wagner and director Jonathan Darby over making the story more modern. Forrest Whitaker, who plays the lead role in the movie, briefly left the set because of creative differences, which made things worse. The Directors Guild and HBO executives had to step in. Even though filming was pushed back by 3 weeks, the movie still got great reviews when it came out. Wagner was praised for his work as a producer, even though he had some scars from war. But not every choice he made was good for him. It was 1967, and Wagner turned down Bonnie and Clyde. He had the lead role, but he decided to go on vacation with Natalie Wood instead. Warren Beatty played the part, directed the movie, and made more than $6 million from his cut of the pie. Wagner said it was one of his biggest regrets afterward. He also turned down parts in The Godfather and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. People became famous for those parts. Wagner lost more than just money. He also missed the chance to change who he was in a new age of Hollywood. Natalie Wood drowned off Catalina Island on November 29, 1981. 2 months later, on December 2, 1981, Robert Wagner sat across from Jill St. John at a quiet dinner party. She knew Natalie from when they were girls and sent flowers to her after her death. But that bizarre evening in February 1982 marked the start of something new. Wagner still thinks of February 14 as their anniversary because that's when they went on their first date. A lot of whispers happened because Jill was so close to Natalie. They went to dance class together and were friends in Hollywood. But Wagner was still sad, taking care of 3 girls, making the movie Hart, and now he was falling in love. After being together for 8 years, they got married in the backyard of Wagner's home in Pacific Palisades in April 1990. Natasha's children were bridesmaids, and it all felt like a strange circle. He married Jill, who was his 4th wife. He married her for the 4th time, making their family stronger through loss. Wagner had to raise his 3 girls by himself after Natalie died. Katie was 26 years old, Natasha was 11, and Courtney was only 7. Years later, when Natasha was in her 20s, she fell into a deep sadness. This was the hardest part of the story. She tried to kill herself. Yes, Wagner found out. He locked up all the pills in the house. Even more so because Natalie had tried to kill herself too, it broke him. Back in 1964, after she broke up with Warren Beatty. It was called an overdose and a half because she took so many sleeping pills. Wagner taught his girls at home after Natalie died, but the pain was still there. In the end, Natasha said that Wagner saved her life and always treated her like she was his, even though they weren't linked by blood. But not every girl felt the love the same way. When Courtney turned 26 in 2000, she blew up. At a family get-together, she said that Wagner always picked Natasha, calling her the golden child, and pushed Courtney to the side. Wagner didn't guess what would happen. He said it was because he was jealous. But things got worse quickly. Courtney said she would go public and tell family secrets. The damage was terrible. For more than a year, she couldn't go to birthday or holiday parties. During that time, her life fell apart. In 2012, she was arrested in Malibu for having drugs and cocaine after a fight with her boyfriend that turned violent. After a lot of treatment and Wagner finally admitting his mistakes, the family was at peace again. He is 95 years old now and a grandpa as well. Riley is 19 years old and Clover is 13, but even that age group is having trouble. As Natalie's executor and trustee, Wagner is in charge of half of her $7 million fortune. Still, some people, like Natalie's sister Lana, say he had something to do with her death. In California, Wagner's $3.5 million fortune could be taken away if he was ever charged with murder. He still wears cool grandpa sweatshirts and posts birthday pictures of Riley on Instagram like nothing is wrong. But he's really scared of being sued, of going to court, and of losing everything he's worked hard to protect for decades. They've been married for 35 years, through everything from public suspicion to real health scares. Wagner almost died when he got COVID-19 in 2020, when he was 90 years old. Jill became his nurse, just like he used to take care of her. While the pandemic was going on, they still cooked together, mostly Italian food. But their Aspen home was very quiet. He says that's where he wants to be buried. In a group of aspen trees, next to kids who never made it. When it was their wedding anniversary in 2025, they looked at old pictures and faced a quiet truth. They're both getting old. Jill is 84 years old now. He tells her that he loves her. The person who kept him sane when everything went wrong. Everything still makes me think of the death. Natalie was scared of water that was dark. At night or when it was windy, she would never have gone near the edge of the boat. But she got into the water that November night in 1981. It was called a mistake in the first V. Then, in 2012, the coroner changed the cause of death from drowning to drowning and other factors that could not be identified. She had strange marks and scratches on her arms, face, and neck that don't happen when you just fall. Later, Dennis Davern, the captain of the boat, said that Wagner took too long to call for help. When Natalie didn't come home at 11 p.m., Davern planned to turn on the lights and call the Coast Guard. Wagner said not to. They didn't call anyone for almost 90 minutes. David did well on a polygraph test in 2011. Based on what they've learned so far, the weight may have killed Natalie. The case was looked into again in 2011. In 2018, Wagner was finally known as a person of interest. His story didn't make sense to the police, they said. He may have been the last person to see Natalie living. Still, Wagner has not agreed to talk to them. While this was going on, more people came forward to tell new details about the night that changed everything. HBO put out a program called Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind in 2020. Natasha helped to make it. Wagner was shown in a softer light as he tried to explain himself. Critics, on the other hand, saw something strange. It never talked about Davern's most shocking claim, which was that Wagner kept him as a hostage after the event, gave him a job, a place to live, and even locked him in his room to keep him quiet. His book called Goodbye Natalie, Goodbye Splendor talks about it. But that part wasn't shown in the movie. In the year 2025, Wagner doesn't say much. He is cut off from everything. He never gets on boats at all. He used to love the ocean. He's not going to touch it anymore. On July 4th, instead of his usual video, he shared just one old picture. His family says he feels bad about what he did and wishes he had looked for Natalie sooner. According to the police, he may have started seeing Jill St. John before she drowned. But Jill says they started dating months after they met. In either case, his shame has made him a shell of the person he used to be. Still, his home in Aspen is lovely. It's 7.5 acres big. In 2007, he and Jill sold their home in Brentwood for $14 million and moved there. Wagner still rides a stationary bike every morning for 30 minutes straight. It's what he does. He says it helps him stay young. He made most of his $20 million from Hart to Hart and income from Austin Powers. Things were scary again in 2025, though. Natasha shared a video of him working out on his birthday while Sinatra's My Way played in the background. They told him to stop, though. His heart was already weak from having rheumatic fever as a child, so it couldn't handle it. His friends said he was getting pink and breathing hard. He changes tools like a man half his age. He just smiled and said, "Things are going pretty well." He still posts old pictures, acts happy, and celebrates his acting achievements on Instagram. He also honors Natalie on their almost anniversary. But people who know him well say that he's lonely and that Jill is the only thing that keeps him grounded. They say that the case, the lies, and the guilt have worn him down. Wagner has talked about the mistakes he made in his work when he was alone. The hardest thing was saying no to The Godfather. He didn't want to only be in crime movies. He also didn't watch Rebel Without a Cause, The Graduate, or Butch Cassidy. He turned down jobs that might have made a big difference. Now that he's 95, he thinks about those decisions and says that life is full of missed turns, but he's not done yet. He needs to write one more book. Following on from Pieces of My Heart and You Must Remember This. This one, he says, will be about getting old in a good way. He still says his favorite things, like life is made of pieces of your heart or dogs teach you love better than most people. Fans should only think about what is, not what might be. His story is full of fame and money, but it's also full of pain and silence. In his last chapter, Robert Wagner still wants to be known as someone who never gave up.